Labour is embracing the ideology of ineptitude. It is now clear Britain cannot withstand a second Labour term. You know, I suppose from a journalist perspective, the Labour Party is the gift that keeps on giving, because their headlines over the government's first 100 days have been nothing less than a gift to the laziest of journalists that are out there who use Twitter to get all the information.
Sick burn.
However, for the rest of us, people who are not journalists, people who have kids and family to, well, keep alive,
It's been terribly inconvenient.
it's been hell trying to pay for groceries, for bills, and various other things that life throws at you. In their first 100 days, if I'm going to quickly summarise it, this government has contributed to making our electricity the most expensive in the world, imprisoned people for tweets, sold British territory, and they plan to jack up the price of council tax as well as nearly any other tax, so the idea of being an entrepreneur is made inconceivable to younger generations. Younger generations that will, as a result of this, like the Blair years, become more and more reliant on big government for the answer.
So, an idiot then?
Now, some of these issues I've just raised appear in the two articles I quoted earlier. Now, I will only focus on one of the articles because it was very revealing. According to Tim Stanley, a historian and Telegraph contributor, ministers would rather do the right thing than protect British interests, as Net Zero and Chagas make clear. Now, when he says the right thing, he means their version of the right thing, what they think is the right thing but actually isn't.
All hail the Communist Party.
Your Labour government is now over 100 days old. The warranty is expired. You can't send it back, as it sparks and malfunctions like a demonically possessed printer. You might ask, is the fault ideology or incompetence? The answer is both.
Ding, ding, ding! What do we have for her, Johnny?
You might say that the incompetence and downright stupidity of the individuals elected is what leads them to have said ideologies. Millennial progressives have elevated incompetence to the level of ideology. Screwing up and giving in is exactly the point. And right there, that's the truth of it all, isn't it? The problems of the last 25, maybe even 30 years can be boiled down to two words: life experience, or rather the lack thereof it. What did old Labour used to have in abundance? Experienced people. Now, I'm not saying what old Labour used to do was great when they were in government, but at least I knew they understood the world. Most of those people were ex-miners, craftsmen, low-ranking soldiers, people who have real life experiences about the issues they campaign on. They didn't just go to university, then get parachuted into a constituency. They were locally born and locally represented. I would wager that nearly no one, without the benefit of Google that is, can even name their MP. And I won't blame you either, because who are these people?
Who are you? I'd never heard of you. Nobody in Europe had ever heard of you.
The role of government, the thing that controls your life over the course of the last 25, 30, hell, maybe even 40 to 50 years, has gradually been given over to lesser men and women.
The weak have taken the earth.
Lesser people who should not be anywhere near an elected office. Millennial Labour believes in neither Methodism nor Marx. Well, not so sure about the latter there. They don't think they're Marxists, but their actions show their true hand. Its causes and values are borrowed from California Democrats. True.
True.
They portray themselves by their obsession with shopping and Taylor Swift, and inability to think in first principles or abstractions. Was obvious in the PM's words on keeping the Falklands British. It's personal to me, because his uncle served in war. Are we to assume that had his uncle not served, he wouldn't care about it?
Yes, that's correct.
Millennial Labour, I think that's the most adequate phrase. We had old Labour, then we had new Labour, and now Millennial Labour. It's adequate because everything is about feelings these days. Everything to them has to be personal in some way, as the PM said with the Falklands. Instead, he could just use a little intelligence about it and say, oh, I don't know, the Falklands are British because they're British. End of discussion. Have some balls. But that would require having a set of balls which he has misplaced, I know. When The Guardian published a now infamous article accusing the documentary about October 7 of othering the Palestinian killers, I smiled with recognition, for I hear these arguments every time I'm on the moral maze. Kids with more degrees than Kevin Bacon have told me not to other criminals by locking them up or extremists by opposing them.
I hate them. I hate all of them.
This is the same article that The Guardian pulled down, by the way, but not before archive.org did its magic. This is the same article also that stated, and I quote, "All our sympathies are with relatable Israelis." What the fuck does that even mean?
These people, they're evil.
An American liberal called Anna Kasparian, for those that don't know who she is, I don't know if she still is now, but she certainly was on a program called The Young Turks on YouTube, recently broke with her fellow travellers after she spoke publicly about being by a homeless man. She expected sympathy. Instead, she was accused of pushing an anti-homeless narrative, even racism, though she never said what race the pervert was.
In 2022, as I'm walking my dog, I see these two guys that were just kind of like moving around weirdly. Living in LA, I mean, there's homeless people everywhere, right? So I've never had problems. I didn't think anything of it. But as I was bending down to pick up my dog's mess, one of the guys like grabs me by my hips, and he had an erection.
Oh, God.
And just starts like humping me. I'm pretty good at defending myself. In that moment, I just knew there was no option.
No way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And luckily, he stopped, and they just laughed at me and walked away as they were laughing at me. And so there was the fear, and then the humiliation, and weirdly shame. Like I felt ashamed for some reason, and it was awful. And so I opened up about this on the show, not really thinking much of it. And before I knew it, I'm starting to get these messages, and it's like really, really harsh stuff. And it's about how you are painting a picture of the homeless community. You know, how could you be like this? You know, these are your unhoused neighbors and they need help. A few people accused me of being racist when I had never disclosed the race of the individuals who did this to me. And in fact, they were white. And so like when they started accusing me of being racist, I'm like, wait a minute. Why are you assuming that the people who did this?
Of course.
Yeah, like, I think you might have a problem here.
This is stupidity reimagined by overeducated minds as sophistication, rejecting realism, willpower, or excellence in favor of the purity of doing the right thing. As I said, it's their version of the right thing. Often determined by people who don't have our interests at heart. A released prisoner saying he's now a lifelong Labour voter was thus the defining moment for the first 100 days. And that last line sums up the issues in full. Just right there, right there. Labour MPs are drones. Drones of a weak nation that mummy-cuddle them all their lives. The fact they believed imprisoning people for tweets and releasing hardened criminals, and yes, they were hardened criminals, drug dealers and rapists, back onto the streets was the smart move, shows their not only lack of understanding for basic law and order, but a lack of comprehension for right and wrong. Morality does not play well with this Labour Party. As I sign this video off, I want you all to remember something. I want you to remember this headline. I'm a lifelong Labour voter now. Drug dealer 20 hails Keir Starmer. Freed convicts are sprayed with bubbly, and one insists, I'll be a good boy, as 1,700 inmates are released early. Please remember that headline. Thank you all for watching. Do take care, and as always, God bless.